So thank you everyone for staying with us for what has been a 3-day intense journey where we have traversed the landscapes of information, of technology, with speakers from around the world, and we're still bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, which is absolutely fabulous. So it's our privilege to be here on the lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I'm from Ngunnawal land, and I'd like to recognise Indigenous leaders past, present and future, and pay my respects to any and all in the audience with Indigenous heritage. So we're very privileged to have a great speaker to finish us off and to inspire us to walk out and challenge the future. Professor Marek Kowalkiewicz is the Professor and PricewaterhouseCoopers Chair in the Digital Economy at QUT. He's a member of the Library Board of Queensland and very conscious about the transformation that libraries can have to our nations and to the world. He's the inaugural chair of the digital economy at QUT, with deep experience conducting research in the digital economy field. He's led significant technology and innovation research projects and co-invented with industry and industry partners to deliver groundbreaking technologies to the market. So he looks, he thinks, he fosters ideas and then creates. Former Senior Director of Research for SAP Silicon Valley and Singapore Global Research and Industry Economic expert in the digital economy. He's someone who thinks incredibly broadly. I really encourage you, after you've heard his presentation today, to go and look at some of his presentations on YouTube. You will see someone who is constantly thinking about the whole world and how it can be reshaped with technology. Not a narrow thinker, someone who will have us walking out of the room thinking about changing the world. So welcome, Marek, and thank you very much for being with us.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Marek Kowalkiewicz. Thank you for your time. May you live in interesting times. May you live in interesting times, they say. Apparently, it's an ancient Chinese curse. I did a bit of research around it. It's not ancient, it's not Chinese, it's not a curse, it's an opportunity. Think about this beautiful world we're in, how the way we live, work, and think has changed. Think about what happened 20 years ago, or what was happening 20 years ago. Think about what is happening now. The way we live, work, and think changes. Imagine trying to book a place somewhere in the middle of nowhere in Norway, kind of a tongue twister, middle of nowhere in Norway. 20 years ago, what would it take to book a place somewhere in the middle of nowhere in Norway? These days, you could probably pull out your phone and in 5-10 minutes find a beautiful place and book it while you're here at the conference. The way we work changes as well. 20 years ago, you needed a garage to start a globally leading business. Yes, Google is over 20 years old now. These days, you could start a globally leading business from your bathroom if you want to, or at least kitchen, right? All those platforms that are giving us access to the global markets are really changing the way we work. And the way we think, it's a relatively obvious example these days, but remember how we used to choose organizations that we work with based on brands. These days, brands are almost dead. What matters is trust. And that trust is given to people we don't know by people we don't know. Those 5-star ratings given to a driver that we don't know by those we don't know. And it's fine, right? I'll just jump into that car, right? So it's really changing. It's changing the world. It's really interesting. And at some stage, we're actually evolving here. You probably don't even check the star ratings of drivers anymore, right? You just trust that that platform that is ensuring that if any of the drivers gets a rating that's too low, they get kicked out from the platform. So it's an interesting world. And I get most inspiration from my children. I have twins, 8-year-olds, soon to turn 9. They come to Daddy and say, Daddy, tell us about the olden days. So 1997 or 2005, when phones still had keyboards, when the world looked very different, right? But I take it as a perspective, and then I think, well, so in 10, 15, 20 years from now, we'll be looking at today and thinking, these were some cool olden days, right? People had to point a camera of their phone if they wanted to take a photo, and they actually had to have a card to wave in front of a terminal when they wanted to pay. They had a phone to wave in front of a terminal. Actually had a phone. What is a phone? Can I see a phone? No, think about it, right? There were no mobile phones 20 years ago, roughly. I might be off here. In 20 years, it's absolutely possible that the mobile phones we know today will be a thing of the past, right? We just need to open up to this possibility. My kids inspire me. My son, at this age, he's sort of very sensitive to anything that's naked. He chuckles all the time, right? So I took him to QUT. He saw the Peppa bots. I'm sure you know Peppa bots. That was his reaction, right? Daddy, they're naked, right? So he suggested that there's a place for a job of the future, a fashion designer for Android robots, right? I did some research. Turns out there are already fashion design shows for Peppas, right? So there are people who design those. And if you think this is ridiculous, well, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, mobile phones didn't have those skins, covers, and so on. There's a job of a mobile phone skin designer these days, right? So why not something like this? When I asked my daughter what does she want to do in the future, she said, I want to be a wildlife carer or manage algorithms. I might have made up part of that sentence. So I thought that's ridiculous. Again, right? That's like, the first reaction sometimes is wrong, but that's what I thought. But then I did some research. Turns out, and you know it because you did talk about it during the conference, we need to become increasingly literate about what algorithms do, what could go wrong with them. And at some stage, you need someone like my daughter who will say, no, this algorithm that cannot explain how it came to a particular decision cannot be hired for that job, right? So that will be my daughter being a manager of algorithms. Algorithms are not, and you know it, again, there were sessions at the conference about it, algorithms are not just a domain of computer scientists anymore. We need to start thinking about them differently. It's an exciting world. I work at QUT in a partnership of a number of organizations. I lead a team that is called Chair in Digital Economy. Chair is typically one professor or maybe an assistant. We're more of a bench in digital economy. There's actually 10 of us. So I grew that team over the past 4 years. So that bench in digital economy believes that what we're doing is we're helping organizations navigate the future. We're helping them go through that maze that you see in our logo. That's like one of those old school mazes with that ball in the middle. Can you see that? Right? We spent a lot of time designing this logo. I hope you do. And it's a CDE, Chair in Digital Economy, right? So we help organizations find their way through this maze, right? And often they don't see what's around the corner. They don't know if it's a blind alley or not. So we do it. We help those organizations, and we love working with them. It's a Library Lovers Day. It's Valentine's Day. It's all about that, and it's an interesting world. In my team, we looked into where our data sits. Who knows what about us, right? And in principle, we have this world where practically everyone knows something about us, right? Landline, another thing that I have to explain to my children. They know a lot about what we did or do. Mobile phones, retailers know our shopping habits. Electricity providers with smart meters these days can figure out how many people live in our household, when do they go to work, and so on. Social media, obviously streaming media. Universities know what we know and can suggest what we should know. Libraries. My watch literally watches every step I take and then uploads it to the cloud. Right? I don't know what happens with the data in the cloud, but hopefully, something interesting. I don't know. Right? I'll talk about it. Airlines know a lot about us. My car recognizes that it's me and not my wife. My house knows when I leave. It seriously does, and turns AC off. Oh, how I love this idea. It turns the vacuum cleaner on, and the vacuum cleaner vacuums while I have a hierarchy of robots at home. So I can say, Alexa, tell Roomba to start cleaning, and Alexa does tell Roomba to start cleaning. So that's an interesting kind of concept that we have to sort of learn how to work with. The government knows a lot about us, sometimes too much. Hotels, taxis, pizza places, sports applications know about our activity, and dating apps. Oh, they know a lot about us, don't they? Right? 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 That's an old slide from 4 years ago, but still makes some people uncomfortable, right? Ashley Madison, you had one job, right? Well, actually, actually 2 jobs, right? Connect us and keep us anonymous. Didn't really work, did it? Right? What did we learn from it? Nothing. A year later, thousands of UK government emails revealed an adult friend finder hack. There was a year after governments sent emails to their employees advising them that it's not a good idea to use .gov.au, or in that case, .gov.uk or go.uk addresses when creating accounts on networking, or however you'd call it, networking sites, right? Look, there's been a lot of bad around it, right? There's been a lot of tragic situations that happen as part of that leak of the data, or leakage of the data. But I'm not here to talk about the bad parts, at least not around those 2 slides. I actually thought that was absolutely fantastic. And we looked into the data, and what we learned about Australia, that places like Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth are among the top in the world when it comes to number of Ashley Madison accounts per city, right? So if this was the digital indicator of digital maturity of Australia, we're doing quite well, don't we? To give you some context behind these numbers, this is roughly 10% of working age population of each of those cities. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? 1, 2, and so on, right? So there's drinks after the session. Make sure you network, right? Look, this is all fun, but I think one of the questions that we should be asking when we see all those is, okay, so where's this world going, right? Where's the economy going? In my team, we've done quite a bit of work in trying to understand, where are we going, what can we expect. I'll be sharing those slides, or you'll have access to those slides. On some of the slides, there are links that you can follow if you want to read or listen to a bit more about it. In this particular case, it's an interesting world where we see an evolution in those 3 steps. I typically talk about only 2 of those, the first 2 on the left, but this time I decided to add the 3rd one that we're increasingly focusing on this year. We see the world shifting from being purely an economy of corporations. Remember this world where the corporations were shaping the economy, right? They would focus on economies of scale, so produce as much as they can of what they're good at. They would focus on cost efficiency, right? I work for a business school. We're pretty good at teaching people how to identify areas of high cost and then minimize that cost. They are focusing on analysis of what they have been doing, and they try to predict future based on that. For those of you who read Nassim Nicholas Taleb's book, The Black Swan, he has this anecdote of a turkey, a bird that wakes up every day and eats food, enjoys the day, goes to sleep. Imagine those corporations being analysis intensive are a bit like the turkey. They observe what is happening every day and then try to extract a vision of the future from that. So the turkey wakes up, food, enjoy the day, go to sleep. Wakes up, food, enjoy the day, goes to sleep. Wakes up, food, enjoy the day, go to sleep. And then like an economy of corporations corporation, the turkey at some stage decides to become analysis intensive. Installs a predictive analytics solution, puts all the data about the past into the system, the application crunches the number and spits out a prediction. I believe that the next day will look as follows. You will wake up, enjoy the day, eat some food, and go to sleep. Turns out the system is correct. The turkey wakes up, enjoys the day, eats food, goes to sleep. The more data the system has, the higher the probability of or confidence of that prediction. After 360 days, the turkey writes a manifesto on the friendship of humans and turkeys, because the humans bring the food. It's a bit like those organizations that are analysis intensive in the age of automation. At some stage, 366, I believe, a butcher comes and butchers the turkey. There was no single hint of a butcher in the data that the turkey had. so the system simply couldn't predict it. While those systems are good, they sometimes make us basically put on blinders and not see some obvious signs of what might be happening. That economy is slowly giving way. It's not really going away, but it is slowly giving way to the economy of people, where individuals have much more power, where rather than economies of scale, organizations, sometimes smaller, more agile, focus on mass personalization. This is basically your Spotify that gives you a playlist that is just for you. Now, you think it's just for you, but that playlist is probably shown to 10,000 people. That's mass personalization, right? You all think it's for you, but they can do it at scale. They're focusing on revenue resilience. What is revenue resilience? They understand that a core area that they're working on might be disrupted, so rather than trying to protect it, they develop a number of areas in which they offer value. Sometimes they're competitive among each other, but they develop a number of those, so when one of them gets disrupted, they can quickly get up and continue operating, right? That's the Apple offering iPads that were clearly competing with MacBooks. And so those two lines of business that Apple would probably not love each other, but from the organizational perspective, it makes perfect sense. That's revenue resilience. They're also being design intensive. Alan Key, the former head of Xerox PARC in Palo Alto, also chief scientist at Apple, and doing all sorts of other things these days, famously said that the best way of predicting the future is to create it. The best way of predicting the future is to create it. You just create a small pocket of the future, you test it. If it works, you grow it. So that's the age of digitalization. Now, we live in this interesting world where we're also starting to see algorithms acting on our behalf. I call it age of augmentation. I initially wrote on life, as in a mix of online and life, right? So our physical life is being sort of saturated with algorithms that are around us, that talk to us, that listen to us, that follow our directions, and that make us follow their directions. So that's the concept of on life. But I thought it's, I'll just write augmentation because it's easier to pronounce. This is where we see that shift now from economies of scale, mass personalization, to lifelong partnerships. That's the world where you buy a product and it stays with you and it keeps engaging. It's your phone that you don't buy as a phone, but you actually buy as a shop front to all the services of whoever sold you the phone. That's a lifelong partnership. It's the mass saturation. So those organizations not only focus on cost, efficiency, revenue resilience, but now try to make sure that you cannot open a fridge and not see them, right? They're everywhere. They listen to you. They wherever you look, they're there, right? So these are those Alexas of our lives. They're also experiment intensive. They realize that sometimes design is a bit too tricky, too costly, so they just experiment. At this very moment, there's probably a few thousand versions of Facebook that are being shown to you. So if you probably compared them on your phones, each of them would look slightly differently. Sometimes those differences are imperceptible. But what Facebook does is they test reactions to those changes, and then whatever creates the reaction, whatever change creates the reaction that they want to achieve, this is going to take precedence, right? So that's what I mean by experiment intensive. Very interesting world, right? It's a world in which we need to start thinking a bit differently. This is a photo that we keep showing in my team to all sorts of groups of people, and we ask them what's wrong with this photo, right? I know that there's one thing that's wrong with this photo. That phone is being kept upside down, right? The camera is sort of on the bottom, right? But it's a cheap stock photo. I only paid a few dollars for it, so I guess I cannot complain. But seriously, what's wrong in this photo? What's the behavior that you're seeing here? Suicidal. Good one. Never heard this one before, right? What else? Multitasking. Yeah, well, positive spin on it. Doesn't need a watch. You're right. Yeah, absolutely. The watch is fishy as well. So there's something wrong with this watch. But yeah, distracted driving. Would you agree? Perfect. What is the driver distracted by? The phone, the food. Say again? Something in front of the car? Yeah, absolutely. Someone said the car. Right? The driver is distracted by the car. Have you thought about it this way before? Maybe, just maybe, this driver doesn't really want to be driving. Maybe his primary goal is to, be on that call or socialize with friends and, have some food, but he has to be driving. And while everyone is focusing on finding ways of removing that phone and that donut from the photo, maybe we should start focusing on ways of removing the car from the photo. Right? When I showed this presentation to Queensland Police Services, they agreed. They said, we're on it. No, but seriously, right? This is a different way of thinking about the world, right? This is where you sort of look beyond what we're primed to think and think, hey, maybe there's some opportunity there. There's fewer people thinking about removing the car from the photo than those that are trying to remove the other ones. This might explain why Google is working on self-driving car, though I don't want you to think like this. I want you to go beyond what we typically think, right? So why is Google working on a self-driving car? What are they trying to achieve? Say again, control everything? That's a pretty broad statement. Hard to disagree. That's possibly true. But yeah, like more specifically. More time to be on Google, right? Thanks, Jane. Did you see my presentation before? Yes, I'll elaborate on Jane's point. All of those self-driving cars will probably have a screen in front of the interior, right? What the interior is going to look like, by the way, that might be, might be a bedroom, might be an office, whatever, they'll put on top of it. But there might be a screen there. Whoever owns that screen owns that channel of interaction with the rest of the world. So my claim is, and I don't claim to be right, or pretend to be right, my claim is that this is the mobile phone of the future, effectively. It's a channel through which other organizations will be offering us services. And because we'll happen to be spending some time in those cars, this is a huge opportunity. So whoever's there first has the higher chance of owning it, right? Maybe libraries should think about building self-driving cars. We apply this thinking to all sorts of industries. Now, what we've noticed in my team is that often lessons from one industry apply directly into another industry. That's actually a bit of a revelation for some of us, but that's what we're seeing. You just need to come up with lessons that are relatively abstract, and then you can apply them to other industries. So I'm going to give you a task now, kind of a mental task. I'll be going through examples of what's happening in the education industry. And in your heads, I won't be asking you to give me answers, but in your heads, think about what is the equivalent in the library or information industry or in general. So one thing that we're seeing at universities is the emergence of micro-credentials and nano degrees, right? So RMIT has something like that, for instance, already in Australia. This one is an example of Udacity, a website where you can go to, learn how to code, or maybe take a digital marketing nano degree course, spend 12 hours and get a degree and a certification, right? Nothing very new for many of you. You know that there are places like this. What is very interesting so we have those new types of value propositions from the university perspective. Universities are only catching up here. But what is also interesting is that value proposition is very challenging for some of us, right? Get hired within 6 months of graduating and receive a 100% tuition refund. Right? So imagine it's already happening. So don't imagine. It's already happening. Students are coming back to universities and say, I spent $20,000 on my degree. I didn't get a job. Can I get my money back? Right? Interesting times. What we're seeing is also emergence of completely new channels. This is an old photo of Amazon Echo. Basically, there are organizations that have the channel of interaction with us everywhere we are, right? There's an Alexa for your car, there's an Alexa for your kitchen, I have Alexa in my speakers everywhere. For us at QUT, the question is, how soon can we be there? Can we develop a skill for Alexa where I could say, Alexa, I need to fill out my tax return, can you help me with that? And then Alexa will say, hey, I can sign you up for a nano degree, and I'll also find you some customers on your street once you finish that nano degree, so you'll get your money back by offering services, right? That's what we're asking ourselves to do. Think about your environment and what could that mean, right? How quickly can you get onto a system like that? Or maybe you're there already. Some of you, I'm sure, use this application. It's called Duolingo. My kids do it every day. They learn Polish, which I'm very proud of. They can spend just 2 minutes, repeat a few words, and so on. It's a completely new type of interaction, right? So not my job to do that, but I'll do it just once. At libraries, you can imagine, what would a 30-second interaction with a library look like, right? And it's sort of relatively easy when you think about channels like Instagram or even a website, but maybe there's a 30-second interaction with a library through some other channels, maybe even physical channels, right? So what would it look like? We're also seeing new types of customers. This is my favorite. I'm kind of, I'm very excited about what's happening in this space. This is an iPhone application that helps you configure your dishwasher, a dishwasher that is smart enough so that it will reorder dishwashing liquid when it runs low on it. So what you do in this application is you tell the dishwasher where you live, you give the dishwasher your credit card number and whatever else it needs, and then it makes the purchase order. Here's the twist in this story. The dishwasher already knows where you live because it was delivered by Amazon and it's connected to Amazon. It also knows your credit card number because, well, Amazon knows the credit card number. You only do it because if Amazon or that LG, the manufacturer of the dishwasher, didn't give you this application, you would think it's creepy. But now you feel in control. Right? The point is, that point aside, we live in a world where we have new types of customers. Not just individuals, not organizations, but also those algorithms, dishwashers, washing machines, fridges that start purchasing from us. At universities and schools, I'm asking, when are you going to enroll first robots at school, right? And it's not this question actually makes sense. There will be a lot of robots that will need to be configured for a particular local circumstance. I say that there's a new job that's emerging. I call this job a codie, just like a tradie, but for code. And these are the people who will come to your house and finally configure that aircon to work properly, or finally configure your Nest thermostat to talk to your fridge, to talk to your vacuum cleaner, and work properly with your alarm system as well, right? Because it's actually a pretty complex scenario. And if you're a farmer, it might be a codie that comes to you and makes sure that the automatic milking machine is working properly and so on. So this is, this applies to all sorts of industries here. So new types of customers. Customers becoming competition. This is a website called spoonfeedme.com.au. QUT students come to our lectures, take notes, write them up, and then they submit them to spoonfeedme.com.au and they sell them. And others pay for those regurgitated lecture notes, effectively, right? So far we think it's cute, but it could be famous last words, right? Customers becoming competition. They're offering our services in a way. The emergence of platforms, where platforms are now becoming competition. I don't know about you, but if I want to learn something, I often don't go to a specific university or institution, but I go to a platform that will curate the content for me, choose the best pieces, and combine them into one. So suddenly, organizations have to compete with platforms as well. That might be bad, that might be good. That is a situation where we might have employees becoming competition. With those platforms, I could totally think about opening my own university and offering that content through platforms like that. Obviously, there's a lot of other things that I can do at a university that a platform does not allow me to do, so I will not do it. But some others, why not, right? So this is the world we live in. I wanted you to think about it, those new value propositions, new channels, new types of interaction, new types of customers, customers becoming competition, platforms becoming competition, and employees becoming competition. What does it mean for your industry or for your area? I'll be talking about the concept of industries that is effectively dying. Industries are dead, but yeah, for now, let's just ask what does it mean for our industry. So let's talk about algorithms, right? I'm working on a book right now where the concept underlying the book is that we should start talking and thinking about algorithms the way we talk and think about humans, algorithms as humans. It's not suggesting that algorithms as humans, they're still just a piece of code, but when we start to think about them like that, some interesting ideas might come up to our minds. So that's the world we already live in, and we have those algorithms. I'm going to talk about algorithms that are in the commerce space, retail space, but again, that can all be translated. Right now, we're in a world of so-called hard-coded shoppers. This is, and I understand you did talk about the delicate program of washing machines during the conference. So we have washing machines that can buy washing machine liquid, dishwashers that can buy dishwashing machine liquid, mostly in the US for some reason, not so popular in Australia just yet. I used to live in Mountain View, and you could buy those machines that have a big tank of liquid, like a 1-gallon tank, and that could reorder it. We have fridges that can restock themselves. We have printers that can reorder toner and so on, all by themselves. So it's really entering our lives. But there's an interesting thing that is happening in this world. And let's briefly watch this video that was recorded by Professor Scott Galloway from New York University.
Alexa, buy batteries.
Amazon's choice for batteries is Amazon Basics, AA batteries, 48 pack. It's $13.60 total including tax. Would you like to buy it?
No.
I also found 20 pack of Amazon Basics triple A performance alkaline batteries. It's $7.61 total including tax. Would you like to buy it?
No.
That's all I can find for batteries right now. All right. Check your Alexa app for more options.
So there's nothing that unusual about a retailer taking advantage of their custody of the consumer to trade them off to a private label brand, which is what Amazon is doing here. Because when you go on the site, in fact, you do find that Alexa has more options. There are several branded batteries. It's just Alexa, without having to bother with the consumer seeing a brand or packaging, has decided to omit or let other branches disappear from your selection set. Also, the pricing is different on Alexa to voice commands than it is on the main platform. It seems as if they're taking advantage of this lack of transparency to charge more. We'll see. I feel insignificant sitting in front of this.
Did you know about it? I bet most of you didn't. And we're information professionals. I think this is one of our duties to educate the general public about some of the challenges that they will have to deal with when they live in this world, right? There's things we just assume that when I buy through Alexa, I'm going to get the same price as when if I buy through a website, for instance. Well, apparently it's not true, right? So what's going to happen? It's actually already happening right now in Europe, hopefully soon in Australia. The governments are very closely looking into it, thinking, is there an antitrust case that needs to be opened? Do we need to regulate that particular industry? Do we need to put a stop to this? What those will lead to, I predict, is going to be an emergence of preference-based shoppers. So this will be fridges, or refrigerators, where I can tell them, hey, get me a bottle of milk that's not too fat, it comes from happy cows, and it's not too expensive, but doesn't have to be super cheap either. I want milk that tastes like real milk, or whatever you tell your fridge. And then that fridge will go shopping for me, right? The previous one just buys what the vendor of the fridge tells it to buy. The preference-based fridge buys what they can find on the market. So this is a silent video of an application that was created by a startup in New Zealand. The startup is called MyWave. The application is called Frank, and there's, I think, Amy as well. This one is basically shopping for a skirt based on preferences that are provided by the user. So it's a bit like a Siri, but a Siri that actually works. The Frank that they have is actually pretty cool because it monitors your energy usage, and the moment a better rate comes up on the market, it switches your retailer from your current retailer to the cheaper retailer. MyWave are very smart, and they're also selling a version of Frank to electricity retailers so that they can prevent this from happening. They're kind of, trying to make money on both ends of the market. But we're seeing, the first ones emerging. What will happen next? The third generation of algorithms. These are the algorithms that inspire us. They don't just listen to what we want to get, but they try to truly understand why we're trying to get it, right? Alexa, get me a beer might basically mean I'm bored and I just want some. I don't know if it's interesting, but I need some entertainment, right? If this is an inspiring shopper, it might say, hey, maybe instead of grabbing a beer, why don't you go to a pub, or how about you go for a run? It will make you happy, right? And we ordered new sneakers for you. That could be the case, right? This might lead to very interesting questions, such as, how do you advertise to a fridge? All right? Behavioral economists so far are trying to understand how do you advertise to humans, but it is a serious question. I phrase it in a fun way, but it's a serious question. How are you going to reverse engineer a fridge behavior so that when it buys for the milk that I just talked about, you could say, well, I actually have the one that's just for you, and it will buy yours. We will have to answer those questions. Could I have a fridge that takes different algorithms? So, I'm going to install, I don't know, Hipstify on my fridge, so it buys only things that no one else buys, like a hipster fridge, right? Or or a fit fridge, only buy food that's healthy for me, or a happy fridge that probably buys the opposite, right? And that happy fridge, what if my fridge makes me look fat? Right? What if my fridge makes me die at some stage? Who's responsible for that? Who's liable? These are actually, again, I'm framing them so that we have a bit of a chuckle. But these are serious questions that we as academics are now trying to answer, right? How do you advertise to a fridge? Who's liable if something goes wrong? Could there be marketplaces, right? Look, we can probably make it a bit more soft. This is actually just for me to grab coffee, but hey, algorithms are coming, robots are coming. I just wanted to show it so that we're not too scared. Right? This is a DARPA Grand Challenge in robotics from 2 years ago. The robots had a couple of tasks, drive a vehicle, walk up a staircase, open door, grab a couple of power tools. The future overlords are still struggling. Yeah, they had to open a valve as well. A bit like this, just a bit to the right. That's just scary. All right, look, so now, mind you, when DARPA had their first self-driving challenge, not a single car finished the challenge. In fact, I don't think I would have to double check, but I don't think any car actually managed to even start the challenge, right? So a couple of them flipped over, the rest just broke down, right? A few years later, those self-driving cars were driving on the streets of Mountain View and Palo Alto. So it might be the same here, right? It's just that progress is absolutely amazing. Right, we need to use our digital minds. What is a digital mind? Digital mind is a mind that doesn't only think in terms of what's on the left, new database, new system, new application for the users, but also thinks about what are the new things that are becoming possible thanks to those technologies that we rolled out. So a digitalized as opposed to digitized versus digitalized. A digitalized organization is one that not just simply translate the physical world to a digital world, move a book record from a paper, a slip of paper to a database record, but now thinks, hey, now that I've done it, what is possible that was simply not possible with this physical world? So this is the digital mind. Those digitalized businesses are not just problem-driven. Hey, I know how to avoid some situations, but they're continuously seek for opportunities. And they're not only focusing on industrialization, you know this one from my previous slides, but also focus on mass personalization. Finally, they're not just reactive. Hey, this is what happened. Someone forgot to return their book, for instance, but they're proactive, thinking, hey, we just learned that you got a new job. We think this book might be for you, right? So that's the kind of proactivity. A proactive organization is one that is faster than its customers. So customers don't yet know that they need it, but the organization delivers. Some of that, again, might be creepy. Amazon is now testing zero-click purchases. A zero-click purchase is effectively Amazon sending you two boxes. One is empty. The other is with products that Amazon believes you want. Then if you don't want some of the products, you put them into the empty box and send back to Amazon, right? Amazon knows enough about you right now that they can basically make money on this one, right? There's an interesting behavioral feature, a behavior of humans, or a fallacy or bias, that we actually, if we get something, we like to keep it. So Amazon is playing to it as well. Oh, I didn't really want it, but hey, that might be cool. So that's the proactive one. Now, it's not just about customer centricity. I actually believe customer centricity is so 1997. We need to start asking ourselves, what are our customers' jobs to be done? If you haven't heard about this concept, this is basically where we ask ourselves, in a very specific language, we ask ourselves, why did my customer or my user, my client, hire me? What job did they hire me for? When I take my kids to, actually no, let me tell you about it later. Here's a quote from Reed Hastings of Netflix. He says, when you watch a show from Netflix and you get addicted to it, you stay up late at night. We're competing with sleep. Okay, that's the competition for Netflix. Not Stan, not SBS on demand, sleep. In another interview, he said that they're competing with red wine, and apparently it's very hard to compete with red wine. Entertainment, right? I heard the term Netflix and chill. I understand that's also, in this space. So the kind of, really understanding that there are completely different competitors here. When I take, if I ever took my son to McDonald's, when you see me there with my son, you don't know what my job to be done is. You don't know why I hired McDonald's. There could be all sorts of reasons. I could be hiring McDonald's because I want my son to think that I'm a great father, right? So get him a burger, and my son will look up at me and say, like, yeah, he's a great dad. If this is the case, who or what is McDonald's competing with? And don't say Burger King or Hungry Jack's. PlayStation 360, all right? A bike ride to a park, right? Makes sense? Okay. When I take my son to McDonald's, and my job to be done is to keep my son fed because we just had a game of soccer, who is McDonald's competing with, or what is it competing with? Real food, right? A sandwich at home, maybe Hungry Jack's, right? Maybe some other place, but really with food, right? In the same way, you could ask yourself, when you have a customer at a library, what is their job to be done? Sometimes I take my kids to the library because I just need a few minutes of time to myself, right? It's not about books, right? It's not about the resources of the library. So Clayton Christensen asked this question: what job arises in your customers' lives that causes them to hire your services? Okay, let's do another exercise. First one is very hard. What did I try to draw here? What is that? Mattress. Oh, thank you. It's the first time ever someone recognized my drawing. Thank you, mattress. It's a mattress. It's a mattress. Why do we hire mattresses? What is the job that we hire mattresses for? Please be civil. Sleep, right? What are we trying to achieve? It's kind of, from A to B. So when we wake up, we do want to feel refreshed, right? When I woke up today in the morning, I had an aching back. My mattress got a bit saggy. Sorry, there's another word very similar. That's saggy. My mattress was it's very saggy, aching back. What do? Buy a new mattress, right? Because that's one solution. What else could I do? See a physio, right? Interesting. So we start to understand the concept of a job to be done, right? Because I'll see a physio and I'll be refreshed, right? I'll be feeling well. What else? Mattress. Well, topper. Yes, absolutely. Yes, totally. What else? Painkiller. All right. Mattresses are competing with Panadol. All right. Have you ever thought about the world in this way? What are libraries competing with? Childcare, in my case, right? All right. And we could go on, right? We don't have much time for the rest of the presentation, but that's the thinking here, right? There's another one very, very briefly. Actually, when you hire something, you often need to fire something else. If I hire a new mattress, I need to fire the old mattress. Anyone try to fire an old mattress? It's hard, isn't it, right? Where do you store it? What do you do with it? Do you wait for curbside collection and then put it out for everyone else to see the your life? I'd rather pop a painkiller. So think about it this way, right? Sometimes, when your customers hire you, they need to fire something else. What do they fire? How do you come up with all those ideas? This is an accelerated thing. We normally do it over 2 days. In my team, we have a very engineering-based approach to innovation. We don't believe in kind of, creativity striking you at a moment. We basically say, use like PowerPoint templates. Oppositional thinking. Take an existing business model, flip it upside down, and see how you could achieve that. Your users or readers do not like to be hit with late return fees. Well, pay them for returning books early. All right? That's the oppositional thinking. Now you have to figure out how to do it, how to actually get money to pay them for returning books early. Maybe you could redirect the fines toward the benefits, or somehow else, right? If you're an airport and you have a parking that everyone thinks is expensive, pay people for parking at your airport. How do you make it happen? Well, rent out their cars, right? Some of the people will actually be happy to do it. That's how Airbnb works, right? So this is how oppositional thinking works. Derive is asking questions, how would somebody else run my business? How would Hilton run a library? Well, occasionally they would upgrade the client, so they will give them more time to return the book. Everyone would have a personal concierge, right? There would be a lounge for frequent users of the library, and so on, right? So this is how we ask the questions. How would Red Bull run a library, right? Homework. Proactive organization is when you start to predict life events in your users, and then you offer services to them even before they know they need them. I hinted at it when I said, we know you allowed us to find out that you just got a new job. We have a few books that we believe you could benefit from when you get this new job, right? So this is how you think about it. We did it with oppositional thinking when we worked with Queensland Urban Utilities. We had this concept of, how could we actually pay people for producing sewage, right? That was kind of, the concept, right? Normally, you have to pay for the sewage you produce, right? It's the part you pay to urban utilities. We thought, can we pay people for producing sewage, right? And we spent a lot of time thinking about it. In the end, we concluded that there's actually a lot of info in the sewage that is produced. So we had a concept of a smart meter that we put on a sewage pipe, and we said we're going to detect everything that's being produced at the house. We'll know, everything, right? But we thought, yeah, let's just, make it smaller, put it kind of upstream. Actually, that's different, right? You sort of put a latex glove, and we have that sensor, and you attach it to a side of your toilet. And it's a basic sensor, some very basic readings, such as whether the toilet was flushed. That's actually pretty interesting information. I'm interested if my parents do not flush their toilet for more than 24 hours, right? That could mean all sorts of things, right? Blood traces, and I think there was sodium traces, right? So there's just a couple of things. But the Queensland Urban Utilities realized now they're sitting on this opportunity where they could not only have water and sewage pipes, but they could also have a data pipe. And they could monetize, what is happening there, and hopefully they're a trusted organization that you agree to work with. And now they could reach out to or allow you to share the data with your GP, for instance, so that they could monitor for, early signals of any problems, or share it with your family. The Intulet was the concept that we developed. A bunch of executive MBA students created a business case and a startup around it. They received $100,000 from Queensland Health in funding for this idea, because Queensland Health said we want to install them in public toilets around the state. So it's not about individuals, but we want to understand health patterns in communities so that we can schedule interventions, right, or plan interventions. Just, kind of an interesting idea, right? Derive, we asked ourselves how would Google run Queensland State Archives, and we came up with a concept of QSA bot, which is like an antivirus that scans all your messages when you're a public servant and says, this message, so that's auto-appraisal, right? This message has to be stored for 3 years. This message has to be stored forever. So we're basically, saving the time of all of those public servants. I'm sure you also have to do those things, right? Appraise documents. So we're right now working on commercializing that. That was around a year ago during that the cabinet file scandal that you're probably aware of. So that's roughly when we launched this. And I just read that today or yesterday in Queensland, they found 2 cabinets of Queensland Police Services files. So again, just like with Ashley Madison, we never learn. So we need those solutions. Proactive organization. We've built all sorts of services with Queensland government that helps people open businesses, find new funding, but that's how those lenses work, right? So next time you are asked by your manager or whoever else to be creative or come up with a great idea, don't just wait for it to come to you. Use one of the lenses. Next time your kids annoy you, use Derive. What would Chuck Norris do, right? And you'll come up with all sorts of ideas, right? In my team, we run student design jams where we bring students and organizations together in one room. We run disruptive innovation leadership course where we over 2 days teach people how to apply those lenses. We record podcasts. Look for Sharing Digital Economy in your favorite podcasting app, and you'll see those 10, 15-minute snippets talking about all sorts of topics. That's what we did today. We talked about the evolution of the economy from automation through digitalization to augmentation. We talked about algorithms that go shopping and that might become your users very soon. And I tried to give you an idea of how to be creative without actually being creative, and at least be perceived creative from the outside while being very kind of automatic on the inside. We live in very interesting times. I hope you're excited about them as much as I am. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy the drinks.